Hello, I'm Mike Sigman. We have heard plenty about taxes this election season, but you might hear tonight that we haven't been told the whole story. My guest this evening is a tax attorney and an author. The premise of his book is that the federal income tax system has failed. Will you agree by the time we're done discussing this? Tonight we welcome Sheldon Pollack. I thank you very much for joining us here this evening.
Nice to be here, Mike.
You've put together this book. We'll show more of it as the evening gets on. It says, The Failure of the U.S. Tax Policy, Revenue, and Politics. What is the premise? It sounds rather clear from the title, but I wonder if you could tell me what some of your thoughts are. Why has the federal tax system failed?
Well, I think the main problem is that tax policy is made by elected officials. Congress in the United States is charged by the Constitution with revenue bills, and tax policy is made by people who run for re-election in small districts across the country, and people who have to come back to the electorate every 2 years. And it's precisely because those people are the ones that make tax policy that tax policy the tax code has expanded enormously over 80 years. It's now 8,800 provisions, and soon will be 8,000 at this rate. It's because politicians find it in their interest to enact special provisions in the tax code to help constituents, and it works particularly well to help them get reelected.
Okay, well, let's follow up on something you just said. You said, first of all, Congress makes tax policy. They're reelected every 2 years. So we're led to believe, as we're growing up and going to civics classes, that there's a good part about being elected every 2 years. It makes you more accountable to the people. It means that you can, if you get a bad apple in there, you can vote that person out relatively quickly. You know that the Senate is every 6 years, so that you have a policy-making body that can be a little bit more steady and not be blown over by the political winds every 2 years. But you're also saying that that's a downside.
Well, the downside for tax policy is that there's this progressive tendency to fill the code with special exemptions for organized economic groups. Democrats do it as well as Republicans, and they cater to groups that are within the constituencies of their respective parties. Yeah, it is a good thing that people run for re-election. It does put pressure on politicians, for instance, not to raise taxes to 60–70%, although we have seen that, though, during World War II, for instance. The highest tax rate reached 94%. That was simply a national emergency. The normal flow, though, we did see tax rates that were up as high as 70% after World War II. No one ever pays those rates, though. The wealthy people, those are marginal rates. Wealthy people always had special provisions like tax shelters. We saw the end of tax shelters in 1986, but people never really paid at those high marginal rates precisely because legislatures provided exemptions from them.
Loopholes. If the problem is politics, is there a solution?
Well, I don't think the ideal tax code is necessarily designed by the economics department at the University of Delaware or Harvard University. Economists might give us a different kind of tax system, one which did not have loopholes and which did not have special exemptions for organized groups. Economists are sort of affronted by the notion that the tax policy is made by politicians. As a political scientist, my background is also in political science as well as law. I don't find it particularly shocking to find out that the tax policy is made by politicians and therefore is a political instrument, a tool of politicians. But they are also charged with implementing national economic policies. And in fact, the tax code works double duty. It also is used by politicians to implement our national economic policies.
Let me ask you, given the structure, given the way our system is set up, given the way our Congress is set up, can there be serious changes to the tax code the way things exist now?
Well, perhaps the classic book on tax policy written before my book was by a political scientist at the University of Wisconsin, and he ended his book with a prediction that there would never be serious major tax reform. And that book